is a question that our colleague is raising, which is about the use of the dollar as an international reserve currency. It's clear this is part of what is happening. Many countries are saying, in order to avoid this consequence of the imposition of sanctions by the United States on the basis that you are using their currency, in order to avoid the consequences of sanctions that arise from that, let's walk away from the dollar. And hence there's a global discussion taking place about that, and some of it is bilateral. When Russia trades with China, there's no reason why they must use dollars to exchange, none. And so that even India is saying the same thing. So globally, there's a discussion that is taking place to say we must find alternative means of trading among ourselves and not subject ourselves to the situation where there's one currency in the world which becomes the global reserve currency, because it gives the country that is the issuer of the money, that's the United States, it gives it the power to impose its will on everybody because you are depending on it.
All right, Shalom. This is Harold One, Ban Yasha Allah of the Lions Den Camp. I want to say Kal Halayim, La Yahweh, Ba Hashem Yahushai, Ba Hashem Harakar Kodash, Ma'amaf. Double honor to the elder apostles of GMS and the elders. Shalom to you, Akim, Nakwati, and children that believe in sincerity and truth around the four corners of the earth. The picture you see here is the former South African president speaking about how more African nations or countries, specifically in South Africa, that they need to pull away from the American dollar to avoid any more sanctions or oppression from America. Now, those that are in the know, we know more recently that Russia just paid off 40 nations in Africa paid off their debts, amounting to almost 23 to 26 billion US dollars. So they paid off their debt to America as well. So all these nations that were weak, they're saying they're strong. They're building up their military infrastructure. And also you have the BRICS, which is an acronym standing for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And now you have other nations that have joined the BRICS financial conglomerate as well, or economic conglomerate. So now they're all pulling away from the dollar, and this is a move that's called Operation Sandman. You know, I talked about this a couple of years ago. It's called Operation Sandman, to where all the OPEC nations, the oil, petroleum exporting countries, it's a +1, which would be Russia. See, they're all coming together according to the will and power of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai to pull the rug from under the feet of America, and also to strip America of its power and authority in the world. And the main resource, or what you call asset, if you want to call it that, which is not really an asset, but they use it as one, the dollar. That's the main alleged asset that they use to control the world. Ever since they agreed with the OPEC deal for all nations to trade in dollars, to buy oil in dollars. All right. So all these nations had to get dollars, US dollars, as reserve, as a a means of being able to trade between each other. All right. So now that power is being stripped away. The power of America, where they can lay sanctions on nations that don't want to follow their bidding, where they can no longer send out their military to go just take over an area in the world like Taiwan or like Ukraine or even parts of Africa, because they're all protected according to Ezekiel 38 with Russia and China. Right now, China as well, you know. So it says here, former South African president says killing the U.S. dollar, killing it, is the only way to survive Western sanctions. Kill the dollar, kill illegal Western sanctions. Now let's get the word sanctions. All right, this is the word sanction. It says here, sanction also means what? A penalty, punishment, deterrent. Just like a ICBM is a nuclear bombs are deterrents to keep nations from starting a certain level of war. Just like the dollar is a financial and political deterrent to keep control over these nations. But now America has lost that control. Not losing it, has lost it. A threatened penalty for disobeying a law or a rule. And here's another one. It says sanctions means to impose a sanction or penalty on, to punish, discipline someone. All right, it says here, it says sanction programs and country information. Basically saying what countries has America put sanctions on or tried to punish. You got Afghanistan, the Balkans, Belarus, Burma, Central Africa, China, Cuba, Ethiopia, Hong Kong, Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Libya, Mali, Nicaragua, North Korea, Russia, Somalia, South Sudan, Syria, Ukraine, Venezuela. So all these nations, Zimbabwe, America has put sanctions on because of that dollar. All right, it says, while nations such as the United States and the United Kingdom were at first reluctant to place sanctions, by the late 1980s, both countries and 23 other nations had passed laws placing various trade sanctions on South Africa. So America has sanctions on Africa since the 80s, really since the 70s. All right, so now you have these nations saying, what? Kill the dollar. What would kill the dollar is all these nations ditching the dollar. That would kill its power, which will ultimately destroy America's economy afterwards. All right, so the dollar has lost its dominance in the world. China, Russia, all these nations have signed on to the BRICS. You know, you call it coalition or something. Financial, economic conglomerates. And they've pulled away from the dollar, which what kills the dollar's power in the world. All right, so this is a scripture we always bring out, and it's truth. Habakkuk 2, and I'm gonna start from 5. It says, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine. See, because of America and its leaders, mostly 90% Esau, they transgress by wine, meaning through their philosophies, through their business, through their dollar, through their sanctions. All right. All right. So that word transgress means to cover. Bagad, it means to cover, to act covertly, to pillage, deal treacherously, to act or deal treacherously, faithlessly, deceitfully offend. So, and they've transgressed or pillaged deceitfully through that dollar. All right, so that dollar is known as fraud. That dollar is a fake fiat currency, floating money that has no value to it. You know, so the Nixon shock, where they removed the gold standard. So the dollar has no legal value anymore, except for the fact that the nations were using it as a reserve currency. So now that they're all agreeing not to use it, that's going to kill the dollar's power in the world. And we should be seeing that the results of it this month, going into next month, just like the OPEC nations that have decided to stop producing oil. I think almost 1 million something barrels of oil starting in May of this year. And by May, we will most likely see gas prices go up to $4 to $5, all right, a gallon. They said all the way until the end of this year. All right, so all of this is going to destroy not only America's power in the world, but its power on its home base, meaning its economy. Verse 5, yea, also because he transgressive by wine, all right, through their philosophies, through their dollar, through their business, they pillaged the world and stole all the resources from these nations. Stole so many resources and power, assets from Africa. It says he is a proud man. See, who's the proud man? Esau, according to the book of Obadiah. Neither keepeth at home, right? All the military bases around the world that America has, even on the doorsteps of Russia, trying to go into Taiwan and take that from China, trying to take South Korea, you know, using them against North Korea, over there in what they call the Middle East. They want America to deoccupy those territories around Iran and other nations. So they neither keep at home. They send their troops. The Lord said that He's going to send far off the northern troops, the northern army. It says, who enlargeth his desire as hell, man. So everywhere they enlarge their desires and point their order, they bring chaos. So they can offer the order and the control. With that comes control. Soon as they're about to go into a nation and take their resources, next thing you know, all hell breaking loose in that nation. They protest, terrorists, you know, weapons of mass destruction. When really they're going after the assets and the resources of those nations, or they're trying to protect America's dollar and the economy by putting sanctions, and also militarily going after other countries like they did with Gaddafi, like they did with, been so long, I forgot his name, Saddam Hussein. But they were both pulling away from the dollar and moving towards the gold standard and other forms of trade, instead of the dollar, which would have destroyed America's economy as they're doing right now. All right, so who enlarges his desire as hell, and is as death, man. Just like death is never satisfied. It says, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. The same way the grave, everybody sees the grave at some point. You know, we all die. They said what? Esau is the same way. So they give you you give them one step, they're gonna take 1,000 steps in trying to destroy that nation. All right, so just like the Gadites, North American Indians, look what they did. They let Esau get one little smile, and 1 foot landed on the soils of this place, and now they got towns built up, streets named after them, courthouses, putting oppression on the people, moved the Gadites out of their lands into reservations. So they enlarged their desires as hell, man. And their first desire was what? To build a system over here in this other land called Arsareth. And they created a hell for the nation, the Israelites. So wherever Esau goes, they enlarge their desires as hell, especially through America. Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him? Right, because also pushing that dollar, where they seek to deter nations like Africa from rising up and moving out of that third world country position. They want to keep them suppressed, keep them oppressed. All right. So all these nations are fighting back now. Shall not all these take up a parable against him? And that's what they're doing. They're all taking it up, the same parable, the same mindset, to dish the dollar, to kill the dollar. They're all coming into agreement. And the taunting proverb against him. See, this is a taunting proverb. All right. So they're taunting America right now. And so now they're saying it, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. So that thick clay goes into what? Heavy debts. So America's dollar, the more they create dollars, the more debt they're creating for America. Because the dollar was a form of debt. And they just printing it, hyperinflation, what do you call it, QE1, QE2, QE3, QE4, QE to infinity. Quantitative easing, meaning they're printing more dollars. So the nations like Africa, like, yo, how long is America going to increase in all of the world's resources and assets and power through their debt, their dollar that they're using, that has reached way beyond the GDP, the gross domestic product, meaning how much is America selling offshores compared to how much it's bringing in, or how much it owes, you know? And America owes way more than it makes. It owes almost $31 trillion at the moment to these nations. But it's going around playing the bully. All right, so now it says, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. So they want this to happen now. They're like, how much longer? Let's make a move now. That's what they're doing. And they're all joining, they're all coming together, and they're pulling from under the umbrella of the American dollar, and which the umbrella became an anvil to these nations. It became oppression. You know, their safe house became a jail called the American dollar. Now they want to break out of those jails. Not only that, they want to destroy the jails, which means destroy the dollar. So they're all taking up the same parable against this place. And the parables start with the scriptures. Shall they not rise up suddenly? And that's what they're doing. They're all rising up suddenly. Why? Because it's the will of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua to rise, to stand up, to arise in a hostile sense, to become powerful, come on the scene, to stand, to maintain oneself, to be established. So Africa and these nations, these third world countries, they're becoming more powerful in military might and financially. All right, so they're all rising up suddenly. It's happening out of nowhere, seemingly, meaning a wink, in a moment, in an instant. All right, that shall bite thee. So they all rising up seemingly out of nowhere. Operation Sandman, the bricks. So they all rising up suddenly. That shall bite thee. What does that mean? To attack, to strike. It says to oppress. See, they want to oppress the bully now. The rabbit got the gun. So now they want to oppress the bully, America. To pay, to give interest, to lend for interest or usury. And you can't forget the Federal Reserve, Chairman Powell, whatever his name is, and those elites over there in Europe, raising the interest rates, which is ultimately what's destroying the economy of America. Slowing down the economy. Buying and trading. So they're all rising up and they're biting America with almost like the teeth of a serpent. And awake that shall vex thee. So even Russia is like the bear that's awaking. All right, to fight against America militarily and financially. So they're vexing this place by dumping the dollars and by slowing down oil production. All right, and by using alternate routes or alternatives as a medium of exchange instead of the dollar. They're moving towards digital. They're moving towards the ruble. They're moving towards gold. They're moving towards oil. They're moving towards the yuan. And awake, but shall they not rise up suddenly? That shall bite thee. See, nations like Africa are becoming powerful out of nowhere. And awake that shall vex thee, man. So they're all waking up out of that. The scriptures say the nations are mad. All right, let me get that. This is Revelation 17:1. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, and I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. So that's America ruling over these nations. And they were ruling militarily and with the dollar. All right, and with deterrence, like the ICBMs, or what you call the atomic bombs in World War II, put fear in these other nations, knowing that they can bring fire from the sky like that, like they did over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That struck fear into Japan and other nations like China and Russia at the time. Forced Russia to do the same thing in the 1950s started building up their nuclear arsenals. as a deterrent. So also the dollar is a deterrent that they use to rule over these nations, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. See that? So America is that place that we're reading about in Habakkuk. And these nations have committed what goes into being toxic or taking on that same wickedness with the dollar or the business trades. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication, man. To be drunk means to be what? Intoxicated, out of their wits, gone mad, lost their damn mind. All right, it says here, the nations have drunken of her wine, her philosophies. Therefore, the nations are mad. See that? Not that they're angry, but meaning what? To boast. That's what Russia was doing before. All these nations were boasting. They were proud to deal with the dollar, deal with America, make deals with this place, sign treaties. All right, to be praised, be made praiseworthy, to be commended, to make into a fool, to act madly, act like a madman. So these nations have been made into fools, man, by dealing with fool's gold, fool's money, funny money, the dollar. They have been made to look like fools. All right, so but what's happening right now as we speak? Babylon is suddenly falling. Why? Because these nations are rising up suddenly at the same time that America is falling. The Lord is tilting the scale and destroyed. See, and it's going to be destroyed. But we're seeing it fall right now. How for her take balm for her pain? If so be, she may be healed. This place will not be healed. It's going to get worse and worse. But look at Africa. They're getting their debts paid off, but America's debt is increasing. So how long? So now they were like, yo, we done with it. Let's pull away from the dollar. Let's kill the dollar. That's what they're doing. It says here, we would have healed Babylon. See, these nations would have helped out, but now America has no help. They have the BRICS now. The BRICS, all the nations are signed up through the BRICS nations now. They got each other's back. But look at Europe. They're pulling away from helping America. Instead, they're plucking the feathers off the bird by increasing the interest rates and pushing their draconian measures as this place is falling. So we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed, man. Forsake her. See, that's what Africa's saying. Forsake her. To loosen, to relinquish, permit, to leave, to depart from, leave behind, to let it alone. So all these nations are leaving America alone because they've woken up. It said, what? Shall they not awake suddenly that shall bite thee? So they've woken up out of their sleep, out of that foolish mindset, their madness, and they woke like a person waking up out of a bad sleep, man. They're attacking. So it says, we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go every one into his own country. All right, so for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. All right, so Habakkuk 2:8, 2 and 7, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee? See, attack suddenly, and awake that shall vex thee. So they're all waking up, and they're vexing America, to shake off, to agitate, to tremble, to quiver, to causing America to be in terror by pulling away from the dollar, by killing the dollar, by slowing down the distribution of oil and production of oil from Russia and these other OPEC nations. Operation Sandman. Joining the BRICS. So that's the shaking off of America. To shake violently. To cause to tremble. All right. It says, and thou shalt be for booties unto them, man. So they're going to plunder this place. It says to plunder. Let's get the word plunder. All right, so America was robbing these nations of their goods and their power through the dollar. Now these nations are going to what? It says to plunder, meaning to rob of household goods. So they're going to be taking certain lands, certain areas that America owns in the world. They're going to take those places, man. And the resources that they left behind, they're going to take them. Look at, what's that? In Kuwait, somewhere over there, they found out ISIS or somebody took a bunch of military resources from America. All right, the heavy pirating, kidnapping going on in Africa. And a lot of these nations, they own a small portion or a major portion of America's debt. And they're going to send those dollars home to roost. You know? And whatever they send it home for, they're going to own. So if China owns damn near half the debt that America owes. And what did China do with those dollars? They decided to buy up most of the national parks in America and the leases and mortgages. Now when you go to a national park, they don't accept dollars. Go figure. So, yeah, that's the term plunder. All right. All right. So, in other words, the predator is going to become the prey. All right, to the creditors and to these weaker nations. So now America is becoming the prey. That's what it means by plunder and booties. Because thou hast spoiled many nations, man. So they've been spoiling these nations, plundering these nations with the dollar and with sanctions. All right? To drop, to strip, to plunder, to draw out, to take spoil. You see that? So to strip them of their resources, man, and of their power, to deter them. So now the nations are going to do that to this place. Because thou hast spoiled many nations like Africa, South Africa, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee. So their descendants and their cousins, their families, their uncles, their aunts, political rulers that have risen up to power and have seen what America has done to their nation. Now they're rising up, and it was what? All the remnant of the people shall spoil thee because of men's blood and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. So not only for financial sanctions, but also for the blood that they've shed and for the violence of this place, what they did to the north of the nation of Israel and all their violence in the world. Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house. And that's what they've done. They've been through the greed, all right, of these different administrations that have been in power They've plundered many nations through covetousness, through greed, through wrongful business deals, through fraud, which is the dollar. All right. It says what? To cut off, to break off, gain by unrighteous violence, man. That's covetousness. They've gained all their resources and power and riches. How long shall they increase that which is not his? Because they've gained it what? Through unrighteous violence. To being greedy. To gain wrongfully or by violence. And they've done both. Using America to do it. It's really Esau that used America as a machine to rob, steal, and kill these nations, from these nations. So woe to him. So destruction to America, the daughter of Babylon, that coveteth in evil covetousness. See, evil. To his house. And this is the house of the thief. That he may set his nest on high. And that was the goal. They wanted America to be set on high, according to the book of Revelations. The whore riding upon the scarlet-colored beast, dressed in purple, given all the resources of the world. That this place was set on high. All right, the ruling nation. That he may be delivered from the power of evil. All right, so now America has stolen from all these nations so that it would be the predator and not the prey. It says, for thou hast consulted shame to thy house. By cutting off many people, they cut off the children of Israel, and has sinned against thy soul.